got a bloody good day card in the U.S. at least. It was nighttime in London for the main event of UFC London, Aspinall versus Tybura, and I think that the outcome of the main event probably didn't surprise too many people. I know it didn't surprise odds makers because Aspinall was like such a heavy favorite, but he runs through Marcin Tybura, first round TKO in under 90 seconds, and this was Aspinall's first fight since his knee injury versus Curtis Blades, and it's crazy to think it's been a year since we've seen Aspinall in the cage. So what a great comeback for him, first and foremost. But what were your takeaways from this fight?
Yeah, dude, it's good to see a guy like this pick up right where he left off. Of course, um, he's just hand in fashion, and now we can now continue to look forward to Tom Aspinall. He's back and then some, so you love to see it. And yeah, man, like it's like it really. I feel like it should go without saying that he's one fight away from that title shot, and it's a matter of who that fight's gonna be with. I know I saw him talking about like he has a plan set out in place, but I saw him talking about in a press conference about how Bisping was talking to him, and he's like, it's good to call out the guy that just lost, his last fight, being a championship fight. So, um, that's interesting to see where that goes. Just another obviously elite heavyweight gets added into the fold with John Jones taking over things, and yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean, and I know you're talking about Gane versus Spivak in UFC Paris. I feel like, because I know Aspinall has said that he doesn't care who he fights. His goal is just the belt. So I know he's not like opposed to a Spivak rematch, but I would imagine that he wants the Cyril Gane fight, and that'll be a true number one contender fight. And heavyweight really right now has so many, like not big names, but a lot of big prospects. I would say coming up because this fight it seemed like more of a showcase type of fight because Tybura he's an awesome fighter, really underrated, but we've talked about Aspinall on here a few times. We're very high on his potential. I think he's a future champion. It's just a matter of when, in my opinion. But in this fight, really showcased his speed, his movement. Like it seemed like every time he came in on Tybura and landed a 3 to 4 punch combination, afterwards when Tybura would try to counter, he was already like just way out of the way. And his footwork is incredible. He has great feints too for a heavyweight, and for a guy that's like 6'5" and almost 260, he moves around like a lightweight in there. It's crazy. But then to go back to what you were saying before about his next, possible fight, talked about Gane versus Spivak. We know Jones versus Stipe is at MSG in November, and other guys who are coming up, Sergey Pavlovich, Gelton Almeida. Heavyweight seems to have a lot of new blood, and I think the bigger question right now is, do you think that John Jones stays around for these guys?
yeah, dude, it's a good question, definitely, man. Like, I think here's the thing, it's really I think it's just a matter of you know is John Jones gonna stay out of trouble enough to face these guys because I think right now I think he's obviously aware John for as great and then as John Jones is and just obviously above every other fighter he's very well versed into what's going on and
Very true.
yeah what's going on today with MMA and all of that and so
He
he's
did
aware.
also say something to Aspinall too when he mentioned that Jones was like a dream fight for him, and he was like, "Sound like we should fight after uh, he fights Stipe," and John Jones tweeted at him, he's like, "Sounds good, LOL," or something like that. Like,
Yeah,
so you're
yeah,
right, he is
yeah. And
involved.
then Tom Aspel was like, "Hey, he noticed me. He knows I exist now. That's progress." And he's right. So
He's awesome, man.
yeah,
Because he's so confident too, but the humble side of him
yeah.
comes out there because he's like, "Yeah, this is John Jones we're talking about." So I thought that was cool.
I
I'm a
think
big fan of
I
Tom, man.
think John Jones is in a state where so long as he's not obviously getting into trouble with the law and damaging his legacy that way,
I'll give him
you
credit.
know,
It's been a little bit since then,
yeah,
but I do it's
there's
worth noting.
real shame in losing to a Tom Aspinall, and so
Would be crazy though.
yeah,
Whoever, if it even happens, whoever the first person to beat John Jones is going
He
to be
might
like,
be,
that would be
yeah,
nuts.
dude. He might be looking for that guy to retire him. So like, say we
Well,
get the
I don't think he's looking for
man.
it.
I mean, not looking,
I'm sure he doesn't
not
want to
looking
just get
for it,
starched at heavyweight.
but if he went, so
John Jones
that's
is like,
where
I want to
see
get
now.
knocked out by Tom Aspinall.
Now,
I'm going to retire.
now this is the other part of it. It's like, all right, so maybe he's not gonna sit. He's gonna fight Stipe, and that's it. Win or lose, that's it.
crazy.
And so like, that's just like, it's great to have, even with a guy like John Jones as champion, like all this, I guess, parity in the air with the division and like, hey man, like yeah, like the GOAT's the champion, but all these guys are real capable of taking that title away from him on any given Saturday. So
I'm still 50-50 on it because I still feel like there's a chance that John Jones could retire after the Stipe fight. But one of the things that John Jones cited for coming up to heavyweight was it being excited. And there's so many young heavyweights coming up that are really eager to get the throne, like you're saying. Is that exciting or is that exciting? I mean, that's a new challenge for sure. And if Jones is serious about really trying to push himself that'd be nuts. If
I think he's guys. I honestly think he's in a state just like in his career entirely where he's like, he's before it's like, okay, he's light heavyweight champion. Even then, like you're arguing, is he the greatest to ever do it? But now, like, it's as undeniable as it's ever been. So now that he's the absolute top champion right now, in all of MMA, like, I think like he really takes a lot of pride in that challenge, and he is gonna try to hang with these guys. Like he just took out Gon, so
yeah, which made it look easy against a guy who is not an easy fight in the slightest.
Yeah, in that sense, it's like apples to oranges going from that to now Stipe.
We'll see. I would love to see him fight a guy like Almeida or even Aspinall because they could definitely cause problems on the ground.
Almeida, definitely on the way
honestly.
too. Probably still away, like because he's still obviously a guy like Spivak still hanging around.
For sure.
Obviously Tybura, who just lost this fight, is still capable of hanging with them. These guys trying to break into that at top 10, at top 5. So.
He's always been a perennial contender. Like Tom Aspinall, he looked great in this fight, and people will say maybe he got an opponent that was easier for his skill set, but at the same time, I mean, you just said it. Tybura is an elite heavyweight. There's.
I mean, yeah, dude. What were you gonna do? Like, you couldn't really you couldn't really book him as if obviously he just is literally coming off of the Curtis Blades win, and then it's on.
Well, Curtis
next
Blades
one.
lost because he hurt his.
Coming off that fight, and then as if he didn't just miss an entire year of
You would have never
action.
thought it too by how he looked in this fight. So quick,
that is true
even better.
as well. So
honestly, he looked better than he's really ever looked in this fight.
Yeah.
It was quite incredible to see. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be a mental battle to get over an injury like that.
Yeah.
And just outstanding. I'm looking forward to whoever he fights next, honestly, because I'm a big Aspinall fan. So I'm sure no matter who it is, it's going to be pretty exciting. But then one of the other fights on this card, Meatball Molly McCann, that was a pretty hyped up fight just because of the nature of it. You got UFC London, McCann's big in the UK, and they put her up against Julija Stoliarenko. Got that one. And at first I remember I was kind of perplexed by this one just because if anybody remembers it, I forget what fight night it was, but Stoliarenko obviously fainted twice trying to make 135, and then this fight is at 125, so you're like, this girl could barely make bantamweight, and they're putting her at flyweight against McCann, who's a hard puncher. I was like, I think they're trying to build a knockout here because, the more weight you cut, sometimes that'll hurt your chin.
That was most definitely what was the plan.
It did not work out that way. And, I know some people don't like Molly McCann. I know some people love Molly McCann. I would say I'm probably in the middle. She's fun to watch and she's a cool personality, but this fight did not go well for her at all. She just pretty much got beat up on the ground until she got submitted with the armbar less than 2 minutes in. And the bigger story, I think, coming out of this fight is her statements afterwards saying that she plans to move to 115 pounds. And I was curious to see what you think, but I'll start with what I had in my head. Just I think that there can be some success for moving to 115 because she seems to have to struggle at 125 stopping takedowns just because she's a lot smaller. But I don't. I think it could help her take down defense, but when she's on the ground, like actually on her back, it seems like her technique just isn't up to snuff with people, and I don't think that that part changes at 115. Like anybody has the potential to get better. I'm not saying that she can't, but as I see it right now, I don't see it solving all the problems, but maybe a couple of them. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I don't. It may. I think you have a point in that, in the sense it's like maybe it's just too soon for like a change in division because how many fights are we talking at 125 anyways to this point in
She's
her
had a
UFC
few, I think, at this
career?
point. I don't know how many for sure, but she's been around. I will say that. I'm gonna look right now, though. Oh, of course, Tapology brings me to UFC 291, and not the fight night that I need. All right, I'm gonna look it up, but she's been in the UFC for like a little bit, though. I will say
I
that.
do, yeah, I am aware of that, but I think it's fair to say like it's not. She's more of a recent case in terms of like your name getting out there and her,
Well, with
obviously
the hype, yeah.
yeah, the
She's been in the
UFC trying to
UFC,
push
by
her.
the way, since 2018. She first fought in Liverpool in like May of 2018. So I guess like she's been it's like 5 years now, and
Yeah.
that big fight, which one was that? It was like the spinning elbow. Yeah, that was in 2022, and I think that's when she really got a lot of the hype. I mean, she's fought some good girls in her weight class. She fought Ariane Lipsky, Talia Santos. She beat Ariane Lipsky. It's worth noting. She's lost her last two fights. Obviously, one of those is to Erin Blanchfield, so that's kind of you can't really fault her for that. But this one, it was against a bigger girl.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I think honestly, I feel like this is a division that you could kind of just let the dust settle with what's going on up at the top, and then, then like really like hone in on your decision there.
I am surprised.
But
I am surprised she's moving down.
yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe just like because you can't. Who's for me to say like it wasn't like it was just on the fly. It wasn't calculated with her coaches, her camp, or nothing like
True. It could have been like a consideration coming in. I mean, obviously every fighter thinks they're gonna win, but maybe saying like, all right, well, if we have another fight like this where the wrestling is gonna be a problem, maybe we should consider it. And obviously it didn't go too well for her. I don't know, man. I definitely see what you're saying about the top of the division, how things are changing, and maybe it could have been a little too soon. But at the same time, she also doesn't have like that big of a reach, so I feel like it could help her striking even at strawweight. And who knows what her power is going to be like, because she really does have knockout power, and like there's not too many girls in the UFC who have that. And I'm impressed by that, and I'd be curious to see what it looks like at 115, if it's diminished at all or if it's even better, because I think we've seen.
I don't know, man, because perhaps her, maybe her ground game gets even more exposed, and then that kind of, kind of renders like her striking not as effective as.
But you shouldn't put her up against Mackenzie Dern. Just don't do that to her. Or Virna Jandarova, or either. Don't put her up against any girls. 115, because they're skilled.
So how old is Molly McCann?
She's 33. Yeah.
Yeah. So
she hasn't had that many fights in her career. Like she's only of course, wait, no, I didn't get rid of it. She's 13-6, so she's had 19 fights. So her 20th it'll be her first strawweight fight ever. So good luck to her. I mean, she's exciting when she's on, you know what I'm saying? So hoping for the best for Meatball Molly. But the last fight we wanted to talk about real quick was Paul Craig versus Andre Muniz, and this was Paul Craig's middleweight debut. And talk about like out of nowhere, like we were saying, Molly McCann kind of going down to 115 was a little out of nowhere. I forgot that Paul Craig was going to 185 and going against another jiu-jitsu specialist. Like that was a fun fight, and a lot of cool scrambles on the ground, some nice submission attempts by Muniz, but just seemed to kind of fall under. I'll start with this actually. I was thinking about it, but I'll start with this. Paul Craig at 205, it seemed like he was struggling with guys up against the cage and taking them down. Like he would get in for the takedown, but he wasn't finishing them. In this fight, he seemed to have no problem with takedowns, which was pretty incredible because it like the improvement was so noticeable. Like I literally wrote it down to bring it up, and I was really impressed by his wrestling specifically in this one and his top control because I mean obviously the ground and pound finished the fight, but just to see like the improvement on both sides of the ground game because usually we see him try to pull guard and work off his back. For him to go against a guy like Muniz who submitted Jacare, let's remember that, and just to get on top of him, beat him up like that, just incredible, man.
He ate a nice headbutt too in that first round.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Was on purpose too. I don't think that was an accident. That like they showed the replay of that
Dude,
too.
yeah, like
that was a dirty little move
like,
there.
yeah, I think it kind of looked like because it was a relatively timid first round on both ends.
Yeah,
like a glorified sparring match seemingly, and then obviously the headbutt happened. It's like, well, good luck shaking that off in your freaking middleweight debut. And
I didn't like that,
man. Like that dude. Clearly, Paul Craig did not like it either because he handled.
He made him pay for it in the next round.
He made him pay for it.
That's for sure. He just looked so good. I will say this: his striking's never been his strong suit, obviously. So I don't want to like criticize it too much, but I will say. He looks like a little slow at 205. At 185, he looked a lot slower.
I think this move is probably going to allow for his jiu-jitsu to like really like overwhelm guys.
That's what I'm hoping. Because like I said, his striking seemed like his technique is all right, but his speed sometimes worries me because he was getting tagged a few times in the first round by Muniz. And Muniz isn't exactly like a world-class striker.
Yeah.
So when he gets up more in the rankings, because now he's going to be ranked because Muniz was in the top 15. And
yeah, there you go.
He called out Bo Nickel and Sean Strickland. I don't know if Strickland's going to happen because Israel Adesanya called him out for the man dance. So I like that he used that. I posted that on Instagram that Izzy called it that.
Yeah, wow.
That could happen, but then Bo Nickel, that's an interesting one to me because I still feel like they're going to slow play him just because he's so like raw in MMA still, but stylistically, man, God, that'd be a fun fight with Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu versus Bo's wrestling.
Well, it's cool to know that it's at least like a genuine possibility now.
I think it is. Maybe not the next fight.
Yeah, albeit not likely, maybe, but yeah, we'll see. So.
And this is a very, very, very early like prediction without like really thinking much about it. Who would you favor in that fight, like just off the top of your head? Don't hate on us for this. We're not technically analysis.
I mean, dude, like analysis. It really is a closer fight than it may seem. But oh man, I think Paul Craig just straight up on points.
Yeah, you think he could take? I don't know, man. Because Bo,
I think
he's not taking Bo Nickel down.
I feel like control time would play its role.
I think he would have to sweep him.
Yeah.
Like. Because he's not taking Bo Nickel.
Because obviously we know the deal with Paul Craig off of his back. So if a guy like Bo Nickel is on top of him from there, it's like, well, is Bo? Yeah, is Bo?
Bo's good at jiu-jitsu though too. Like he's pretty sneaky with it. Like his back takes are really good. He's good at scrambling. I mean, he's one of the best collegiate wrestlers you've ever seen.
I think,
I don't know, man. It's just the striking.
I think for now,
me.
For now, we just
It's a fun fight.
Yeah. Bo Nickel is still very, very raw, like you said, to the game, and yeah, I think you're exactly right when you say UFC is looking to slow play him. It makes sense, and yeah, so
there's a lot of guys that Paul Craig could fight though in the top 15. I mean, I'm just looking at it right now. I don't know who has fights booked and who doesn't, but like Dolidze, Hermanson, Brendan Allen. Gaslam's going down to 170, but Derek Brunson, just like all these guys at middleweight, I feel like you could have so many fun fights because Paul Craig, he's quite a unique fighter. We've talked about his style a lot. Like there's not many dudes who are that comfortable fighting off their back, and now at middleweight it seems like his wrestling has really improved. So great fight for Paul Craig, and we'll see who they match him up with next. And next week is going to be a fun week. We got probably big pod coming, THH 55. UFC 291 is next week as well. Spence versus Crawford. So it's going to be a fun one for sure. I mean, the UFC fights, we got Poirier versus Gaethje for the BMF belt.
Yeah, dude, it's been a pretty great summer for these pay-per-views.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I mean, the last one we were talking about it, you could argue that was the best one that we've ever seen. I think it was definitely like top 3. But oh my God, Poirier versus Gaethje, Jan versus Pereira, Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, Chiesa versus Kevin Holland, Wonder Boy versus Michelle Pereira, Derek Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. And then I put this in my notes, so I had to shout these dudes out. Sleeper fight. It's the first fight on the card, I believe. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Uros Medic. That's going to be a fun fight. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. I guess I'd say that to the more casual fans. If you want to turn on ESPN during like the early prelims, catch that fight if you can, because that's probably going to be really exciting. But it's also going to be really exciting next week when we get to talk about it on THH 55. We'll see you all then. Easy guess. Hey, locker.